Hey everyone, welcome back to John's Watch. Today I'm taking a look at a new game called The Rogue Prince of Persia. This game is released on Steam in Early Access on May 27th, 2024. It's developed by Evil Empire, which are the development team behind the Dead Cells game and a DLC, and it's published by Ubisoft. Its regular price is $26.99 Canadian or regional equivalent, and this is a, as you can potentially guess from the title, a Prince of Persia roguelite game. The description says, jump into this action roguelite installment in the Prince of Persia series as you flow between death-defying platforming and acrobatic combat as the prince himself. Battle through the capital city again and again with one goal, find a way to save Persia from a Hun invasion wielding dark magic. So, like I said, this isn't early access. It feels very weird to see a game that's in early access be published by Ubisoft. You know, if you think of the biggest video game publishers in the world, Ubisoft is what? Top 3, probably? So just very bizarre to see a Steam early access game published by Ubisoft. Since it's early access and at the time of recording, like when the footage you're all seeing on screen right now, I recorded that May 31st, so I was playing it 4 days after it came out in early access. There's not a ton of content to the game right now. That is why it's in early access, I guess. They want to get developer, or they want to get player feedback, and that's how they're going to get the game from this early access point to its 1.0 release with feedback from players. So with that in mind, I have only played about an hour and a half of this game. It's early access, there's not a ton in it right now. It's far more platform centered than I personally prefer in my roguelites. It's a Prince of Persia game. Platforming is kind of essential to those, so I went into it expecting there to be a decent amount of platforming, and there's wall spikes and ceiling spikes and stuff like that. So if you enjoy that kind of platforming and you want to mix it with a roguelite, you'll probably enjoy the Rogue Prince of Persia. That's just not how I prefer my roguelites personally. I decided to do post-commentary for this game because it's very, very fast-paced, very, very action-heavy, that I thought trying to do live commentary, I would just be stumbling over my words, just constantly getting distracted by what I was trying to do in the game. I covered another Metroidvania. Well, this isn't a Metroidvania, but, you know, Metroidvania adjacent. It's got, like, the Metroidvania map. But I covered another Metroidvania recently, and I did live commentary for that, and when I was editing it, I could just tell I was struggling to like make my point as well as I could, because I had things to say. It was just hard to do it live, so I wanted to do it post commentary for this one, just so I can actually get all my thoughts out without having to worry about playing the game. You play as the titular Prince of Persia. The Huns have invaded, and it's up to the prince to save the day and defeat the Huns, stop them from their invasion. Time travel is kind of a staple of this series, and it's also here in this game. The prince has a bola around his neck, and that, I guess, typically protects him from death and lets him rewind time. But in this game, to fit the roguelite genre the game's in, the bola, I mean, it doesn't really prevent him from death. It prevents him from permanently dying. But basically, if you're out on a run, you get killed, you resurrect back at the starting area, like any roguelite would. You know, it's just kind of an in-universe way of explaining how this is a roguelite. I haven't played a ton of Dead Cells personally, but you can definitely see the Dead Cells inspiration in this. I don't know if you can really call it inspiration when it's developed by the Dead Cells developers. You have, at least right now, you have quite a small selection of weapons you can use. You start your run with like the level 1 weapons, and as you go through the areas, you'll find literally like a very small handful of weapons. I think like just on like a regular weapon drop will be like one of 3 weapons, and that's when I could see like it's very clear that this is indeed early access. There's not a ton of like weapons or content right now, but you've got your melee weapon and you've got your tool, which is like your ranged weapon. Like I said, very very small amount of variety in these weapons and tools so far, but they get the job done. Basically, your melee weapon you can use whenever, but your ranged weapon has an energy bar next to it, which you're probably seeing on the screen right now, and that refills when you hit enemies with your melee weapons. So you can't like fully rely on your ranged weapons. You do have to switch back to melee quite a bit. You can also find these talismans, just equipable like trinkets kind of things, and they give you, I would say, like fairly uninspired buffs. Probably the coolest one you can get is something like when you kick an enemy, because you can kick enemies, it doesn't do much damage, but you can use it to kick them into spikes, kick them off edges, kick them into other enemies to stun them. And this talisman says like when you kick an enemy, you create this resin around them, which is just kind of like a sticky goop that's around them, and then they can't move in it. So it's quite useful. But like, I think I saw that upgrade literally every single run I did. So again, not a ton of variety. It's really early in early access. So like if you're looking for a complete version of this game, a complete Prince of Persia roguelike, you're not going to get it right now. You're going to get very little replayability right now, I'd say. You've got very good movement abilities. There's no double jump, but you've got a dash. You've got a vault, which is where you dash next to an enemy and you leap over them. One cool ability I got was every time I vaulted, I would send out this flurry of daggers, which was very strong. So some encounters I would literally just vault over enemies over and over and just let the dagger fan do the work. You've also got, and this is obviously the coolest part of the movement, is you've got wall running. Basically, if you're playing on controller, which I would recommend, you'll see parts of the background that look closer than other parts of the background, so it'll be like a sandy, rocky wall instead of the night sky. Basically, at any point you can hold left trigger and you'll start wall running, and you can use that to cross a gap that might be a bit too wide to be able to just jump and dash. You can use it to run like straight vertically upwards to try and reach a ledge that you couldn't have reached by just jumping. So yeah, there's very good movement abilities, which is good because platforming is a big focus of this roguelike. As you're playing, you'll occasionally come across shielded enemies. They're easily identifiable because they've got a blue glow around them, and they've also got a blue health bar. Basically, you just have to break their shield before you can properly damage them. Easiest way to do that is by kicking a regular enemy into the shielded enemy, and that just breaks their shield. You'll also gather this essence. I think it was called like spirit essence. On screen right now, I'm sure it's there. If you look in the top right, that's that number there. And this is basically your upgrade, your meta progression upgrade currency, I guess. Use that to unlock new starting weapons back at the Oasis, the starting area. You can unlock weapons or different talisman, equipable upgrade things. And this system kind of drove me crazy because you can get a decent amount as you're playing, but if you've got kind of a hard number and a soft number. Your hard number is the rightmost number, and that's kind of your like banked currency, I guess, your banked spirit essence. And then to the left of that is your soft spirit essence. It's the spirit essence you're carrying on your person right then in the game. And basically, if you die, you lose whatever soft spirit essence you've got. And then when you go back to the Oasis, the home base, you'll only have the hard number, the banked number. And the way to bank this is to find these randomly spawning spirit essence, I don't remember what they called them, spirit essence wells or something. Just these little interactable things that you find during your run that let you bank your soft spirit essence. And I found these were so rare. I I think the whole time I played, I think I only saw these things 3 times. I lost so much soft spirit essence just because I wasn't able to find anywhere to bank them. And I think that's a really, really annoying system. I think it's fine if you keep them randomly spawning into levels, but I would also have maybe at the start of every level, you have the ability to bank your spirit essence. Because yeah, it's very, they're surprisingly rare in the game. As you're progressing, you'll also find these treasure rooms, which are these optional, not like ridiculously difficult, but tricky platforming areas. They'll be on screen now, I'm sure. But they have you do a lot of like fairly precise platforming and moving around. And once you reach the end of it, you get a special weapon. You get the blueprint of that weapon if you haven't unlocked it yet, which lets you unlock it back at the base. Gets you a bit of health, gets you some spirit essence. So it's really, really good to do. It's one of the only ways, especially at the beginning, to get an actually interesting weapon. It lets you get a weapon that you haven't unlocked. It lets you try it out and see if you'd like it. But I did find that even though they were optional, it always felt bad to not do it, because otherwise you'd just be stuck with the kind of boring regular weapons. And, you know, like I said, I don't love platforming. So, you know, every time I died, I'd be like, oh, great, now I've got to, you know, do a fairly tricky platforming bit just to be able to get set up again, just to be able to get a good weapon. So I didn't love those parts. Some people will probably like them. The movement feels great. Performance is fantastic. I was running this at unlocked frame rate, so it capped out at 144 FPS for me. I guess that's not actually unlocked frame rate, but I think I had VSync on, so that's why it capped at 144. And it was pretty much always there at like 140. On loading screens between areas, it lagged, but doesn't matter. You're not doing anything in there. It doesn't look wonderful, but it really doesn't matter. But yeah, performance was fantastic. Really, really high frame rate. Lovely stylized visuals. I don't really know how to describe the visuals, the art style, but I think it looks fantastic. The soundtrack, though. I saw some people really like the soundtrack on the Steam reviews. I hated it. It did not fit Prince of Persia in my mind. It was just weird, sometimes quite heavy dubstep EDM. Really was not what I was expecting from the soundtrack. And yeah, I did not like the soundtrack at all. I think I would probably disable it if I was going to play any more, which I'm not, because you know, it's not really my thing. And also, there's so little content right now. It's so early access. I would not recommend getting it at this point. If you are interested and you want to support the developers, I guess you could. But again, it's published by Ubisoft. It doesn't need to be in early access. But I think it is just an early access just so they can take player feedback on, which is quite nice. But yeah, unless you want to give feedback on the game, I guess I probably wouldn't get it in early access. It looks like as you progress, you go through 2 regular levels, and at the end of 2 regular levels, with whichever levels you choose, because you can branch off right at the start, you get to a boss fight. The boss fight's hard. I'll have it on screen, and you know, I played a lot of Dark Souls. I'm decently familiar with boss fights now, but man, this one was really hard. I had one good attempt. And I had to learn the gimmick on the fly, and I got it on the last attempt. But I just did not have enough healing in order to properly get past it. So yeah, I was surprised at how hard the first boss was, because it was surprisingly difficult. That'll do for my video on the Rogue Prince of Persia. Don't have much else to say on it, but I think I kind of explained what the game is and why I don't like it, and why it's probably best to hold off for the end of early access, unless you really want to give feedback on it. My feedback would be completely rehaul the soundtrack. It doesn't fit in the slightest, but Some people really like it, yeah, some people loved it in the Steam reviews, so I might be in the minority there. But yeah, not a fan at all of the soundtrack. That was a look at the Rogue Prince of Persia in Early Access. Thank you guys very much for watching, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!